Everyone, Professor Snart checking in a little bit later than I had hoped. Honestly, it's fairly early on Monday morning. I have been under the weather like so many people these days, and the weather sucks, so that's when you're under it, that's pretty bad. Anyway, we are at a point now where Unit 7, or essay number 1, is due today, which is Monday. What is it, the 10th, February 10th? So you should be at a point where you may have already submitted it or are very close to being able to do so, maybe just a few last touch-ups or read-throughs or something like that. Let me just go into Unit 7 then. For those of you who haven't submitted already, if you are not sure where to submit, you just click on where it says Unit or Essay 1, Unit 7 here. It's one of those things that I often forget to mention because it's so obvious to me, but I know it's not really that obvious within Blackboard itself. If you've never submitted an assignment that way before, it's just, this kind of hidden link up here that unless you know it's there and look for it, it can be a little bit confusing. So I've added actually a little note in the unit itself to hopefully clarify that for people. Now, obviously, you should be well into this essay already, so I won't say too much about it. In some ways, it's actually kind of beneficial that I didn't have or didn't post an early announcement walking you through all this, because hopefully the assignment here can sort of stand on its own, and your ability here to follow the directions really obviously depends on just reading carefully, including not just the unit assignment, but also the sample essays that can be found here in the sample essays link in our course, which are pretty detailed in as much as there's 3 of them. It's not just text that you're reading, but there's audio and there's little annotations about what's going right and what's maybe not going so right in some of those. So in addition to obviously everything in our unit here about as far as MLA stuff goes, in-text citation, which, as I've mentioned before, takes on kind of an artificial importance for our class because it's sometimes called the research class. English 2 or 1102 is the research class. So we really do focus kind of, very heavily, maybe artificially heavily, in this particular course on the research end of it, which isn't just finding sources, although that's important too, but effectively integrating them, following correct citation formatting, and all of that kind of stuff, which actually leads me into a quick look at our due dates, but then a discussion of Unit 8, which is our essay number 2 due. You'll notice that there's a substantial gap here, at least relative to what we've been doing, between essay 1 due today, Monday, Feb 10, and then essay 2 isn't due for a whole week. And in a 16 or an 8-week course, that's almost like, it really is sort of like having 2 weeks to work on this second essay. What you'll also see when you pop into Unit 8, which is what I'll do here, is that you're not writing an entirely new essay from scratch unless something went really, very wrong with essay 1. You are actually, once you get through all this stuff, which is actually, stuff we've covered already, you'll notice the assignment is to revise your first essay. So not only are you making basic changes based on feedback that you get, which I'll try to get into your hands as soon as possible, and that might be as simple as just fixing little editing things, typos and stuff. There might be more substantial, like reorganization or rewording that has to happen, maybe even refocusing a thesis. There may be basic, research or citation things you can take care of. That'll all sort of come out of the feedback that I can provide to you. But one of the main things that you're doing here is adding or integrating a secondary source, or basically the research that you're doing. So as we've looked at before in our course, and as I'll highlight yet again, and as is literally highlighted here, you're not just finding general web material from any of these kinds of sources, whether it's kind of stuff that we'd stay away from anyway, like GradeSaver or just random websites, or even Wikipedia, which might be an org now that I think about it. But anyway, even a credible source like that, that's not the kind of research process that we're looking for. We are using the databases just like we've done previously in the course, so obviously that's what you're doing here. And you're needing to find a commentary or a secondary source that is a discussion of the primary text that you're writing about, of the short story that you're writing about. The entirety of the source might not focus on just your particular take or your theme. So again, just like we've done in previous units, when you search for your source, use the databases we've looked at, like the Literature Resource Center or the McGill on Literature, and just type in the title of your short story. You don't have to type in the title and then some theme or your thesis or anything like that. So you can keep the research part relatively simple, honestly. And so again, like we did for that previous unit, Unit 6, I believe, where you're finding a source, you're just looking for that source about your story, and then from that commentary, you're pulling a quotation here and there to integrate smoothly throughout your essay, really in every single body paragraph of your essay. So you're not just taking your essay and kind of tacking some stuff on the end, or just mentioning like once or twice at the end of a paragraph this particular source. It really does need to be integrated. So is it the same essay? Well, kind of. I mean, it's probably the same basic thesis, and you're probably using your same examples from the primary text, but it will read and look substantially different in terms of the integration of this secondary source. And you'll notice that everything I'm saying now is really rehearsed for you in the unit assignment itself. Here again, you're clicking up where it says Essay 2 to submit this as a file. So one of the things to keep in mind for Unit 8 here is that because this essay is now really primarily the integration of that secondary source, I grade to see if you've corrected mistakes. In other words, if you've made mistakes in Essay 1 that are not corrected in Essay 2, especially ones that I've obviously called attention to, your grade will obviously suffer for that. But I'm really actually looking mostly for the integration of this secondary source. So you could, in fact, have an Essay 1 where you get a really good grade, then even make some improvements, some corrections for Essay 2. But if you really screw up the integration of this source, so it's a wrong kind, or it's poorly integrated, or the citation's wrong, the works cited's wrong, your grade could actually go down, even though I know the content or the substantial body of the essay might be improved from essay number 1. So, like I've kind of highlighted throughout the course, you really want to focus on, what are you trying to show me as you're doing this essay? And primarily, it's the effective use of sources. This is also a good time to maybe go back previous units and look for effectively integrating sources, so strategies for literally like how do you introduce quotations, how do you weave them smoothly, where do they sort of fit in the essay, and all that kind of stuff. Okay, one last little note, which is a little bit tricky for me to show you here because if I click on the My Grades link, you'll see that this is what I get. So I can't actually look at the grade book in the way that you look at your grade book. So you'll just have to sort of follow what I'm saying here. You'll have noticed then when you click into My Grades, you'll get obviously like a number grade or points for the things that we've done. And also in certain cases, make sure you're all seeing any sort of comments that I've made, maybe things that you did really well, things that you forgot to do. So don't always just be looking for that number, even though that's kind of the thing that people are ultimately concerned with. For your essays, what I do is I kind of use the technology that I'm using to do this, where I capture my voice, but also anything I'm doing on screen. So I open your essay in Word, and then I'll mark it up, I'll highlight things, make little notes maybe in the document itself, but I'll also talk you through it or talk us through it as I'm doing that. So what you'll get in the My Grades is a couple of different things. First, a grade, of course, so a number. You'll get the file back, so you'll have that file to work with. And one thing to really note is that if I correct a mistake right at the start, whether it's major or minor, but like a misuse of a citation or something like that, I won't correct every single instance. That's kind of up to you to find that mistake, the one place that I've marked it, and then make corrections throughout. So be sure that you open up that document that you get back and really give it some attention. And obviously you want to get rid of any marks that I've made in there if you use that same file to become your essay 2 or the revised essay. The other thing that you'll get from me is probably a link. It may be embedded in Blackboard or just a link to outside, but it will take you to the video that will look kind of like this, except instead of our Blackboard course being open, it'll be your essay with, again, my voice and me kind of like scrolling around and typing stuff in it. In my experience, students, once they get the hang of it, find that really useful, just to have that, again, kind of presence of me there with you, sort of looking at the essay. But clearly you're going to want to spend the bulk of the time with the document itself, making sure that you attend to any mistakes that you've made. And then, of course, really the substantial part of Unit 8 is effectively finding and integrating sources. All right. So this is a really good time to be in touch with me about essay questions or general course questions. And make sure you use the time between now and our next due date, which is a lot longer than what it's been, to really, get that feedback from Essay 1 and really make Essay 2 as strong as it can be. A lot of people do, I think, worse on Essay 1 than they think they're going to do, and they get a little disheartened. But in fact, because Essay 2 follows right after it, and because the final essay in our course, the culminating essay, is really where all the points are, even if you don't do quite as well on Essay 1 as you'd hoped, you have lots of opportunity to make those points up, and obviously the computer at the end of the course will total your points and you'll end up with, something out of 1,000. But if you're 5 points away from an entirely different letter grade, and I see that maybe you didn't do so great on Essay 1, but by the time you got to the final essay, you weren't making those mistakes and you really had improved, then clearly I'll make the human decision to bump that grade up. So again, the Essay 1 grade is important, but as important is, if you made mistakes, especially substantial ones, is really learning from them, because you have lots of opportunities to make corrections and to make up that ground if you lost any. Some people do great on Essay 1 and just do great through the rest of the course. So there you have it. All right, again, be in touch with any questions or concerns, and I will talk to everybody soon.